Welcome back to the Field Notes podcast. I'm Jake Rowe. She's Braelin Smallwood, and this is our 12th episode of the Field Notes podcast, and we've got an announcement to make. We are now presented to you by Georgia Farm Bureau Insurance. Listen, if you've got to have insurance, right? And why not work with a company that supports Georgia farmers, that supports Georgia farms? It's the only company in Georgia dedicated to promoting Georgia farmland and preserving Georgia's agricultural industry, which helps feed and clothe the state of Georgia. Georgia Farm Bureau Insurance offers a wide range of insurance coverage options, the most popular being auto, home, and life insurance. They have dedicated agents who live and work in communities across the state where they provide an exceptional service and an exceptional experience for their friends and neighbors. Become a Farm Bureau member today, and we really appreciate them sponsoring the Field Notes podcast and believing in us, Braelin. Let's listen. We've got a full show. We got a lot of bucks to talk about. We got T-Bone Turner from, I don't know, pick your thing, Bone Collector, T-Bone Outdoors, Outdoor Channel. I mean, he's done a little bit of everything. But before we get into any of that stuff, Braelin, Happy New Year. How you doing?
Happy New Year to you too, Jake. I'm doing great, living life, having fun. How was your New Year?
It was good. I had a good time. We'll talk about some of that a little bit later on. Got to finish 2025. I almost said 2026. Normally it's about February before I get into the new year, before I start writing down the right date and stuff. Thank God we don't do checks anymore. I can't tell you how many checks I used to write back in the day with the wrong date on them at the beginning of the year. But got to do a little fishing.
What's the check, Jake?
Do what? What's the check?
Yeah.
Have you ever written one for real?
Yes, I actually have written a few. Very little. Couldn't tell you where my checkbooks are. I don't write them often. It takes me a long time to write one now, but speaking of the age there, but
yeah, for sure. So we'll get into that here in just a little bit. But first of all, a little news, a little storytelling this week at GON. And I got to tell you, Seminole County buck, 24-point buck, 18 points on one side, 200 inches, Braelin. This thing is unbelievable.
Man, that's crazy. That's just unimaginable. If I saw it walking through the woods, I don't think I'd be able to move, draw my bow back, or any of that.
Yeah, you think you had some shakes going on?
Oh, for sure. I probably couldn't even pull my bow back at all. And then if I shot it, then I would be having the buck fever shakes for sure.
Yeah, this is Colin Chandler out of Donaldsonville, I believe. There's some small towns there in Seminole County, but I'm pretty sure he said he's from Donaldsonville. And he saw this buck for the first time on Christmas night. So this isn't one of those deals that I've been tracking this thing on trail cameras for years, and which kind of surprises me. It seems like very few deer kind of get the chance to fly under the radar these days and miss a trail camera, but this one had to have missed them plenty of times. Sitting in his recliner Christmas night, he sees this bad boy, and he kicks off 2026 with an unbelievable buck. And like I said, 18 points on one side, Braelin, bow buck too. So this is your boy.
Yeah. That's awesome. Good shot. It is crazy. You were talking about how it's hard to imagine not seeing a deer on camera and getting them on trail camera. I feel like that's the deer that you want to get. It's the ones that you don't know about, the ones that you don't see, and you're not just like stalking.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I was thinking about this deer, and I started thinking about a conversation that you and I have had, and growing up, honestly, I was probably in my teens when I first started hearing about deer scoring and Boone and Crockett and all that stuff, right? But we always just talked about, hey, what point was it? Was it a 7-point? Was it a 12-point? Was it a 13-point? When did you first start kind of thinking of deer in terms of scoring as opposed to points?
So honestly, when I started working for GON, growing up, like my brothers hunted, dad hunted, granddad hunted, everything, but it was always talking about oh, that's a big 8, 10 point, But score wise, when I started working for GON, when we have to kind of go based off of scores, especially with truck buck, it being all based on how the deer scores, and then don't even get me started on non-typical scoring versus typical score, and I still can't wrap my head around it. But I think also growing up where you don't have these like 200-inch deer, like Lincolnton, I don't even know. Like we didn't do scores. It's just like a big 8 point, and I still am like, oh my gosh, an 8 point. Like I couldn't look at a deer and be like, yeah, that's a such and such score inch deer. What about you?
How many points was that buck you killed a couple years back or
so
last year?
I've killed two 8 points, and to me, one of them was great, and then DK actually helped me learn how to score it. So that's how he taught me how to score a deer, was on my own rack, which was awesome. And it scored a whopping 105. And I was super proud of that. I'm in the deer records, which is great and such an awesome moment. But to me, that was great. I was like, it's a big, like thick horned 8 point. So it's cool.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to say I was exposed to it. Like I said, probably when I was a teenager, probably, late teens, 17, 18 years old. But I mean, still to this, it was probably before I started, working with GON and doing stuff with GON and kind of getting immersed in it every day before I ever really started thinking about it in terms of scoring, and you talk to, like we talked to Jay Maxwell, we talked to, Taylor Rampley, and, that's their, vernacular. Like they talk about a deer, you won't hear them say, yeah, I shot an 11 point. They, say, yeah, I had a, 147-inch deer, or 140, 150, whatever. And it's just kind of, I don't know. I mean, it's just different. It's so different than we all kind of came up and the way I came up and really never even talked about deer scoring at all. But I have a similar situation to you, Braelin, is that Pearson, I think I've talked about this before on the podcast, where I grew up, I'm about equidistant between Tifton and Waycross is where I grew up. And I'm right there on the edge of the 912 area code. And when you kill a big deer where I'm from, it's kind of rare. I don't want to say like nobody kills big deer, but I mean, the record there is nowhere close to where it's at 60 miles away in Worth County. Right. So I didn't grow up in a big deer county either at all. We kill a lot of them, for the amount of people we have there, but just didn't. And this buck, I believe Colin told me that it was the rough score on it was 211 inches gross, which there are going to be some deductions on that. And I think ultimately he thought with deductions, it might end up in the 180s, which would give him a very good chance for the bow record in Seminole County, which I would he's almost certainly going to have the bow record with this deer. There's only one other bow buck in our records for Seminole County. So I think he's in the 130s or 140s, and he's got a chance at the overall record for Seminole County.
That's awesome. That's a big feat. I mean, just that deer is awesome. It's so unimaginable. I can't even like I said, I can't imagine seeing it in the woods. I wouldn't do anything. And I think like in his story, he talks about something getting caught on his zipper and then the deer looking at him. And I bet his heart was racing and like, I got to get this deer.
Yeah. He said when he was trying to, he had his bow in his left hand for a long time. It was just there, and he felt like he had to hold it forever while the deer was kind of walking with his head up. He stuck his head down, the deer did, and he, went to kind of get the bow in position to pull it back and draw. And it kind of, he said, I think it caught on my zipper or something because it made a little ticking sound. And then the buck picked his head up, rolled its ears forward. And the negative thoughts were flowing at that point. Like, I'm busted. I'm done.
Nerve-wracking. Hey, that would have just been another chance to do the same thing and get that thrill again.
But eventually got him within 22 yards, schwacked him, as we like to say. And big buck, man. Impressive buck. There's another really impressive buck that was killed in Clayton County by our man Tyler Houston, who actually hunts in Meriwether County. And I wanted to tell this story, Braelin, because he didn't first spot it on a trail camera. He got this thing on one of those Blink doorbell cameras. His mom got it sent to her by a friend of a coworker or something like that. Hadn't heard very many stories quite like that one.
What are the odds of that? I wonder how far out those cameras can actually see. Like, so I wonder how far this deer was from that camera. Because I mean, you see like the videos of people walking up on the porch, and you see it. I know this deer didn't walk up on her porch, but like, how close did it actually get?
I wouldn't be surprised if it did. I don't know if I've mentioned this, but my family and I went out to Zion National Park a couple years ago for Thanksgiving. And, we flew into Vegas and then we drove a couple hours, maybe it's like 2 hours and 45 minutes, 2.5 hours over to Springdale, Utah. And we're, getting ready to check into the Airbnb. I get out of the car and there's a giant buck. It's a mule deer, but it's a giant buck just standing right there on the front porch. And I think it's a decoy because it's standing like dead still. And I'm like, oh, these people like to mess around with you. And I just start walking towards it with suitcase in each hand, and then all of a sudden it tilts its head. And I'm like, whoa, okay, we got a live one here. But those things out there are like pets. So, yeah. But this is another urban deer, another urban monster. We've seen some really, really good looking urban deer killed this year, but he first spotted it on the doorbell camera. Then he went and knocked on doors after, in his words, getting his butt kicked on his property in Meriwether County this year. I'm sure there's probably plenty of stories of that we don't get to tell.
That's right.
And finally just kind of figured it out, got his bow. And again, that's your boy, Braelin, bow guy.
Bow people, love them. It's awesome. I mean, we should have, instead of just putting trail cameras out now, we just gotta have the Ring doorbell cameras, putting them out, Maybe that'll work differently. I don't know, because it seemed to work for him.
I got to think the technology is probably pretty similar. I mean,
probably. I wonder what's cheaper. Paying the monthly fee for the Moultrie trail camera and versus I don't know is there a monthly fee for a Ring doorbell camera?
I think there is, but you may be onto something there. Like, I mean, it would be very funny if it was cheaper. Like if it was legitimately cheaper.
Yeah.
There's another look at that deer.
That's awesome deer. Like, look at that.
See it.
Tall tines.
Yeah, very tall tines. Good looking deer. And the thing I loved about Tyler, and I hope he ends up listening to this, I really do. Man, even when he was talking to me about it, and I believe he killed this buck on December 30th, if I'm not mistaken. He was so stinking excited just to talk about it. Like you could tell like he was just getting revved up, talking about it, and caught the whole thing on video. I hope we're able to kind of show that over at GON at some point. But the whole idea of spotting a deer for the first time through a doorbell camera is pretty awesome, man. I love that.
That's a wild story. Yeah, he was super excited. I know when I got in the office first thing Monday morning, I know we were kind of in and out over the holidays, but I get a phone call. I think it was like 7:45 in the morning, and he was like, "Were y'all off last week?" And I was like, "Yes, sir. We were kind of in and out." And he was like, "I've been trying to get a hold of y'all, but I killed this awesome deer that I would love to talk to y'all about." And I was like, "Yeah, we'll get somebody on it and call you back." And then I know he like Facebook messages too. So I love to see the enthusiasm, and it really shows. And that's just what it's all about, is that enthusiasm, whether or not it was a big deer or the cool fact that he got it on the doorbell camera. It was just great to hear that excitement from him.
I love that whole attitude though. Like, man, where were you? I'm trying to tell somebody about this thing. Where were you? That's what we're here for though. Like we're here for people to tell us about their awesome experiences. And then we get a chance to retell those stories. I can't think of a better position to be in, except for being out there actually schwacking the bucks. But
oh yeah. Or catching the fish in your case, Jake, right?
Yeah, that's right.
You had a fun adventure.
I did. I went down to New Orleans to the Sugar Bowl. We won't talk about the final, final result down there. Georgia loses in the first round of the playoffs, but I covered Georgia football as well, and really a lot. And we went down to Louisiana, and we got into some reds. Got into some, obviously it's not Georgia outdoors, but it's my outdoor extravaganza. I had a good time.
Hey, it's close. You cool, Ray, with your sunglasses on right there. That's what helps you, wouldn't it?
No, not really. Not really at all. No, it was. It wasn't even. It didn't really get sunny until later on that afternoon. It's crazy. I didn't know this, and maybe I should, but I get a guide when I go out and fish. Toward in the in salt water. Like I just kind of do it. I want to get the most out of it. So I guess there wouldn't be any reason for me to know it. But when they have a lot of wind there in the intercoastal, it kind of blows the water out of the intercoastal, and the water was low. And, Captain Christian, who, comes to the outdoor blast and everything, he hooked me up with a friend of his because he wasn't available to take us out that day. And he relocated us from Lafitte, where we were going to go out, to Myrtle Grove. There's a deep channel there in Myrtle Grove, and that's where the most water was that they didn't have enough in other spots. A lot of spots were really struggling, but we did not struggle, and evidenced by this photo right here. 2 flounder, our limit of reds, a lot of meat we brought home. Most impressive thing, though, Braelin, my man cleaned those fish. My buddy Mitch, who was our guide, 20 minutes.
That's an art.
It's cold, it's windy, it's those fish have been on ice, and he fillets those bad boys in 20 minutes.
He's done that a time or two. I think it would probably take me 20 hours, but
I'd still be there right now.
Oh gosh. Now tell me, okay, we all know I'm not a huge fisher of anything. We'll talk about that later. But what do these fish feel like when they're on the end of a rod?
The reds pull, man. Like they'll stretch your line. They put up a fight. They're a lot of fun. Those flounder, there wasn't much to them. Kind of put them on skates a little bit, on skis a little bit coming back. Just had them, on top of the water. But the reds. Listen, there's a reason so many people will tell you, hey, they like to fish and like to fish in salt water. There's a reason so many people tell you I like to chase bull reds, is because they're kind of built to give you a fight. And the bite was kind of weird. They were real finicky. They didn't really take it. But getting them in the boat was not easy at all. For most of these, and they put up a fight, and they're good eating. We've got some meat in the freezer. It's not deer meat, but it's fish meat. Yeah. And it's awesome. I mean, I'm gonna fry some up, grill some up with the black and season and stuff like that. But one thing I did not need, Braelin, I did not need a shot in the booty to handle with my seasickness.
You didn't. Well, that's good. I will need one. But I'm glad you didn't need a shot in the booty for that.
I legitimately don't think I've ever been seasick, so I'm very lucky in that regard.
Power to you, Jake. I've never been seasick either, but I know that I get car sick all the time, so I can assume that I would get seasick and need that shot.
There is no shame in it, Braelin. There's no shame at all in it. Listen, before we get to our interview with our good friend T-Bone Turner, I do want to shout out the fact that we are sponsored by Farm Bureau Insurance. We appreciate them so much. You don't have to be a farmer to take advantage of Farm Bureau Insurance. Every dollar you spend is a vote for the kind of future you want to see. And by spending wisely, you can help strengthen your local economy and ensure a brighter future for your community. A Farm Bureau Insurance policy is more than a choice. It's an investment in the future. That's insurance you can feel good about. So check out Farm Bureau Insurance. I've been a Farm Bureau customer since I've been driving. And they have my homeowner's insurance as well. I am such a big fan of them. I always have a tremendous experience with them. They've always been so great to me. So go check them out and tell them we sent you. Tell them the Field Notes podcast and Jake and Braelin and even Kimberly coming up here in the future sent you over there. Without further ado, T-Bone Turner. This was so much fun. We talked to him about his battle with cancer. We talked with him about his exploits in the deer woods, about his love of archery, and a variety of different things. Let's get to it. Our next guest on the Field Notes podcast is, man, I tell you what, an inspirational figure in the outdoor space, an archery champion, a guy that's been all over and has done a whole lot. Our man, Travis T-Bone Turner, T-Bone Outdoors, Bone Collector, Outdoor Channel, Real Tree, Road Trips. You've done it all, Travis. We appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much. Appreciate you, you guys. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to celebrating all things Georgia.
Absolutely, man. And I'm sorry I called you Travis. You probably don't get called that much, these days. Probably get called T-Bone most of the time, right?
Yeah, either one. Yeah, just don't call me late to dinner. That's all.
I hear you. So, just kind of looking, at your, history and everything. And obviously you've done a lot of cool things and you've been a lot of cool places. You know, I want to start with something that, and go ahead and talk about it because it's something you've probably had to talk about a lot over the years. And that's your battle with cancer. And, you've continued to do your, thing outdoors, even though all the challenges you've kind of been through. Can you just tell us about just starting off with that drive and what is behind you, going through what you went through health wise and still kind of pressing forward and I don't even know, doesn't even seem like you're slowing down when it comes to the outdoors.
Yeah, well, naturally I have slowed down quite a bit of traveling, so I don't travel as much as I used to and do a lot of expos and speaking engagements and stuff like that, emceeing events and stuff. So I don't do quite as much of that, but I'm kind of in the fourth quarter of my life. But yeah, it was a eye-opening experience. Since we had started Bone Collector and being a part of Realtree and stuff, I'd kind of been living with my hair on fire for the last 15 or 20 years. And when this happened, it certainly slowed things down and put things into perspective. So, after getting diagnosed with cancer in 2021, and then, fighting cancer, and then in February of 22, losing my leg, naturally when your mobility slows down, you slow down, but nothing's going to change. I've been real fortunate throughout my whole career, pursuing a passion. So, I always tell folks whenever you're choosing your career path, make sure you're passionate about it. It's something that, you don't really have to dread going to work, or something that you enjoy doing. So whether it be archery, or, the outdoors and hunting, ever since I switched gears from, working for Mercedes-Benz in Atlanta to doing something outdoor related, I didn't know what it was going to end up being, and doors open as you go along. I've never really felt like I've worked. It's just the pursuit of passion. So yeah, things changed, but you just focus on the things that you can do. You hunt a little different, but both my arms still work good. I can still bend the string on a bow, and I still love wrenching a bow. I'm working on bows, and building a better mousetrap has always been something that I like. Mechanical or a creative, or innovative. I always like being a part of those kind of things. So we've got the archery dojo downstairs, the laboratory, so to speak. So we're always working on bows and fixing people's bows up and getting them started. That's kind of what brought me to the dance in this industry anyway, is shooting archery tournaments and just working with people, getting them, ready to hunt. So yeah, it's big for me. That's kind of what brought me to the dance with Realtree, is setting up all their bows and making sure the people that they had coming on the show, that they were set up, ready to go. So yeah, I really, things are different, but yet they're still the same. So no, I'm still passionate about it. I've hunted more this year than I have in the last 3 or 4 years. Actually, in the last, I'd say probably last 60 to 70 days, I've only missed like 6 days. So we've hunted a bunch this year.
That's crazy. That's amazing that you've persevered through that and like overcome that setback, which not a lot of people do. And something that a lot of our audience might not know is that while you were battling your cancer in 2021, you also participated in our truck buck shootout. So tell us a little bit about that. What deer led you there, and what was it like going through all that in shooting the truck buck shootout?
Oh yeah, I grew up, I've always been a fan of GON. I can remember going into buckskin archery. This is back in the early 90s, way older than you guys, I can tell you that. This is in the early 90s. This was in Kennesaw, Georgia. I lived in Douglasville, and, long before cell phones and stuff like that. The only place to rent, might be a little long story, but hang in there with me. But Georgia folks can relate to this. So I can remember I worked for Mercedes-Benz in Douglasville. I'd get off work. I would drive an hour and 15 minutes to Buckskin Archery in Kennesaw to rent VHS tapes of just hunting. You couldn't rent them at Blockbuster or whatever. So I'd get hunting tapes, and they'd have to be back the next day. Drive back home. Me and my buddies would watch the tape 2 and 3 times over the night. And then the next day, as soon as I got off work, I'd drive back and get another video. So we was eat up with it. But in doing so, when I'd go up to buckskin archery, because I just was like a sponge, I couldn't get enough of archery. So you can't Google things in 1990 and 91. So I'm up there enjoying my time at buckskin archery, just hearing anything having to do with archery tournaments or bow hunting. Got to meet Steve Birch there, and at that time he had started the truck buck then, and it was Win My Truck. I mean, y'all probably seen some of the stuff or talked about around the office there, but you got to win his truck. So everybody was saying like, man, we would make fun like, Steve, you're giving away your old used truck. If somebody's going to win something, they want a new truck. They don't want your used truck that you've been hunting in and, spilled coffee in all year long. So we want a new truck. So we used to give him fits because, it's just good outdoor folks giving each other fits and stuff. So anyway, I can remember that. That was the beginnings of it. But to answer your question, Braelin, is I was real fortunate in 2020. The place I've had here since 1999, right here at my home farm or whatever, just had 2 deer that we had been watching and trying to get to a mature age. They absolutely blew up from 2019 to 2020. They really put on 25 or 35 inches. I can't say that, like I had some miracle feed that we were feeding them. It just, you know what I mean? It was a good spring. The stars aligned and God put some extra bone on their head that year. But you call it a miracle year or whatever, but there was two really big bucks on our property. And naturally I'm traveling for bone collector and we're filming and stuff. So I'm in Kansas on a farm that I bought in Kansas. And I happened to kill early in September. I killed my largest buck I've ever killed in Kansas with my bow is a 183. And then the whole time I'm there, I'm getting daylight pictures of these 2 bucks back here at my home place. And I'm thinking like, man, I need to get out of Kansas just as soon as I can so I can get back home and chase these. We all know how Georgia deer are. They're mainly vampires. Occasionally you'll get them to show up during daylight hours. So I got back home and it was my son's birthday for the first buck, September 25th. The deer had been daylight and we'd hunted him a couple of times and we had plans for my son's birthday to like go out to eat and stuff. And I'm like, this deer is daylight and I really love to hunt tonight, but you know what I mean? Family comes first. So they wanted to go to dinner early. We got done and I said, do y'all mind if I hunt this evening? Because we were just going to stay at home and watch movies and stuff. It was a Friday evening and they said, no. It said, we'll just get back together after dark. And I said, great. So I packed everything up and my best friend, Brian Smeck, who's kind of my land manager and best friend, he was going to, he usually films me, but of course it was a Friday. So he was gone, hunting for the weekend at his place. So I just self-filmed myself and one of the 2 bucks was the big 10-pointer. I ended up shooting him, long story short. And he ended up winning his week, which was then. And then just like 3 weeks later on it's either October 12th or 13th. It was the Sunday of opening day of muzzleloader season. While I'm in the stand on the 25th, I'm getting pictures of the other buck some 400 yards away. He's daylighted at the same time. But where this buck is living, the bigger buck, the one I killed with the muzzleloader, he is daylighting, but it's in a place you couldn't really set up bow wise. So earlier on in the year, because we'd seen how big he was, I had taken my skid steer and built a blind out of root balls. And then we put a pop-up blind in there, knowing that we would hopefully keep him on this pattern, real comfortable, low pressure, and hopefully get a chance at him come muzzleloader or rifle season. And sure enough, he was daylighting then. So on the 12th, the wind was wrong, so I didn't hunt it. So on the 13th, we went in there and he came out like clockwork, a good 30, 45 minutes before last light and got him. And he ended up grossing 186. And then it turned out he won that week too. So actually, I won 2 weeks that year. And, I didn't know how the rules worked. I mean, it wasn't like I was happy to kill the deer. And the bonus was, hey, I might get to go shoot for a truck. So I didn't know if I was going to win both weeks and get to have 2 spots in there. But they said that you can only do 1. So that's how I got 1 spot. But honestly, I won 2 weeks, but the second place guy got my second deer spot. So that's how it worked. So I'm like, heck, man, I get to go shoot a pellet rifle. You there?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay, sorry.
We can edit that out. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, you fell off where I had y'all placed up there. My computer has actually been glitching, so I'm doing this on my phone. Usually I do my computer, but it's been dropping off during the middle of podcast and stuff. So, but anyway, yeah, I was just thankful to get to go compete at the truck buck contest. That was going to be pretty neat. I've got to watch it a couple of times, and it's always exciting, and just, talk of the town or talk of the state. Everybody likes to see the results and see about that. So yeah, I was excited to get to be a part of it finally.
What was it like? I got a chance to see my first one this past year, and man, you're shooting a gun at something in front of some people, right? I mean, I know you're a competitive archer and you're a championship archer, but were there any nerves involved with a bunch of people watching you try to shoot an egg or a mini Nilla wafer or anything like that?
No, I mean, honestly, a little bit, and it was an excitement, but it wasn't nothing that, between doing public speaking and shooting tournaments all, my life and everything like that. And to me, I'd already was so blessed to be able to kill the deers. This was just, a cherry on top. So I just wanted to be a part of it. And I just wanted to make sure, that the people that were there, I wanted to cheer them on too. A lot of times you get up there and it's, you can see where people would like, man, I want to win. I don't want them to win. And, I don't want no animosity or nothing like that. I'm like, we're the best of the best. I'm super pumped about just being here. And, I knew that the boy that won it, Colson was his last name that year.
Okay.
He was a young man, and he had sold his truck. He didn't even have a truck at the time. I find that out afterwards, but the one who actually won it, you could tell he was extremely nervous. And I was just as happy for him to win it. We were hugging and high-fiving because most people up there don't know each other because they're from all corners of the state. And, we got to meet each other, and it's kind of fast paced, and, you got to make decisions, and try to, you're shooting a pellet gun that you're not really familiar with. I had one of those. I borrowed one and shot and practiced and stuff like that. But, it's a little different whenever you got to shoot on demand in front of people and stuff like that. So, no, I made it pretty far along. I think I was maybe 4th or 5th place, something like that. But yeah, I was just blessed to be there. It was fun. It was real fun.
Yeah, it was fun to watch this year for sure. Earlier, I mentioned kind of probably only a fraction of the stuff you've been involved with, but I was reading up on your story, and you moved down from Ohio as a younger kid, and then spent most of your time and hunted a lot in Georgia coming up. Yeah. Did you ever think that you would be able to turn it into a career and that you'd get to do the things that you would do that you've done? No,
I really didn't. And I I will answer that question, but Braelin, I was going to tell, you'd asked about going through cancer and winning the truck buck at that time. And I was just getting diagnosed when we were doing the truck buck. I had a huge cyst on my calf that was about the size of an apple during this whole time. And we had done the biopsy, but we were waiting on the biopsy to come back. So just like 3 weeks after the 2 weeks after the truck buck shootout, I was diagnosed with cancer then. So, I knew something was going wrong, because I had this cyst that was growing on my, and actually it was a tumor, not just a cyst. It was a huge tumor that was growing on my leg. And it turned into multiple ones. It was really fast growing. It went from the size of a grape just under the skin at the end of July to where it was the size by mid-September of like 3 large portobello mushrooms, about that size on my leg. Got to where to the point within 3 weeks after doing the truck buck shootout, I couldn't even wear jeans anymore just because it was just, they were so big and so fast growing. So yeah, it was just like, had the truck buck been 3 weeks later, I probably wouldn't have got to compete in it. So wow. It didn't hurt. I was able to walk and everything like that. It was just, something that was growing and something I was dealing with. So not to change the subject, but I just wanted to answer that, about the timeline wise. the truck buck shoot off was about the same time I was getting diagnosed with cancer and everything. So, but yeah, to answer your question, you know, when I was younger, I've always loved the outdoors, and actually through high school and stuff, I kind of was on the fishing kick. I thought that I would, you know, I loved watching Bill Dance and Roland Martin and Hank Parker and all the TV shows. I kind of thought that I would do something fishing wise, but once I picked up a bow when I was late in high school, that kind of, you know, changed. I just loved archery. I loved hunting, and don't get me wrong, I still like to watch a bobber dance around and catch a fish occasionally, but nonetheless, it just switched towards hunting. But no, I went to school to be a HVAC technician. I got 2-year degree in that. I just thought that I would work doing something and then, you know, get to hunt, and it would just be a pastime like most everybody. And then once I, you know, shot in tournaments and did pretty good, then I'm like, you know what, while I'm young and don't have any responsibilities or anything like that, it'd be nice to just pursue this. If I fall flat on my face, I can always, you know, I don't have a wife and kids and a house and a mortgage at the time, you know, being a 19, 20, 21-year-old. And that's the time to take the risk, and just haven't really looked back. I didn't burn any bridges. Any door that, you know, opened, I took advantage of it, and was really blessed to have some good influential people in my life. And, you know, here you go, you turn around 3 times and you're in your 50s, and you've had a really blessed and great career.
So you talked about how you loved fishing, still do, but it's archery. Archery is the thing, and shooting competitions. What is it that drew you in and has just captivated you with archery? I know that question, or the answer to the question for me, but I'm curious to know what got you and what sold you on it.
Yeah, I played sports and stuff through you know, rec ball, and, you know, teenage. I played, you know, being a big guy. I played, you know, I was a lineman for high school and middle school and stuff like that. But I just never was. I mean, I played them, but I was never exceptional. I mean, I was just a spot on the line, and I was just good enough to get a Letterman's jersey. That's about all I got out of that. So I just, you know, I swam pretty good, you know, just from you know, I was a good swimmer. Not that I was on a swim team or anything, but I don't know, when I got my bow. Long story short, I got my first compound bow when I was 19 on a Wednesday. My buddies got talked into going to a tournament on a Sunday, a 3D tournament. Well, it wasn't a 3D tournament back then. It was actually paper targets. Wow. Long before any 3D McKenzie target. But we went to that tournament. I'd owned a bow 5 days, and I guess hand-eye coordination was good, and I was pretty good at it. We started the novice division. We got into the novice division, the beginning bow hunter class, and out of 37 people, I was I finished on top, and I'm like, man, I might have found something I'm pretty good at. And I just realized with archery, it's kind of different than anything, because you have to suppress your nervous energy. You don't want that adrenaline boost whenever you're swinging a bat, and it's a lot like golf. You know, no matter how good you are, you can always get better. And it's real therapeutic because you have to calm your nerves. And I don't know, there's just so many things about it. It's kind of a mix between golf and NASCAR, because you have to work on your equipment and get it just right. And, you know, the hands-on tuning, and, you know, hey, do I need to fletch my arrows a little different? Or do I need to change the FOC? Or do I need to, you know, change the timing on my bow? If I move my center shot, working on my hand torque, muscle memory, all those things, you know, you can always get better. And it was an ageless sport too. I knew that getting into it, it got me in the woods longer, was able to hunt longer, because your archery seasons are longer. States, most of these states across the country, a lot of them don't even have rifle seasons. So you could take advantage of shooting a bow. So there was just, you know, if you're checking off pros and cons, there's just so many positives for archery and bow hunting. And it just gave so much back to me. And then once I dove into it, I realized I needed to be able to work on my bow. So I just couldn't get enough reading articles and watching tapes, and, you know, talking to coaches and going to tournaments and meeting, you know, elders, people that's been doing it a long time. So I just absolutely couldn't get enough of it. And then when an opportunity came to, you know, I quit working for Mercedes-Benz and fighting all the traffic in Atlanta. I went to work in an archery shop, which was Camp Sporting Goods in Dallas, Georgia. Did that for a couple of years, and then me and a buddy of mine opened my own archery shop in down here in Hogansville. And I moved down here and got away from the hustle and bustle, and a lot better hunting and fishing down this way than up in Douglasville's way. So that's kind of what got me to where I'm at. And even to this day, I'm still learning and I'm still finding out things. And it's been so rewarding and so therapeutic my whole life.
One of the things I wanted to point out is I was watching a video a little while back. You did a video, I believe it was with Hoyt, and you were talking about how when you were coming back from, after you'd had your surgery and you were battling back from cancer, like when you were laid up, you were during that whole process, you were thinking about all of those different tuning aspects, and you were thinking about, aero building and FOC, and you had all of that kind of, climbing through your mind during that time. I thought that was so interesting, kind of how, I don't know, you love something so much that, even when you're not able to do it, you're still thinking about it. You're still kind of tweaking. And that was such a cool, aspect to that video to me, that during that time of struggle and you're just kind of sitting there left with your own thoughts, that you were able to kind of have something to focus on that you love. And that was pretty cool.
Yeah, actually, just before, I've always known it's a Georgia-based company. It's Last Chance Archery, which is up near Winder area, and they build equipment for archery, like presses and straighteners and fletching jigs and things like that. And I've always known Leon Pittman and their family, Jonathan Caldwell, and their whole family, and started working with them, because there's a lot of things that, ideas and stuff that I had, and I'm not going into manufacturing. I'm busy enough, with Bone Collector and Realtree and traveling and stuff like that. But I wanted to share these ideas, and we've come out with some great products. And even to this day, I'm always trying to think of a better mousetrap. I got a list of stuff, ideas and stuff. I always try to help with companies. And I'm not saying, I'm the archery god, but if I could, put in a different perspective or, share my views or thoughts like that, it's been real pride, a huge pride factor to be able to, help build some fantastic gear and changing things on equipment and, broadheads and things like that. I love that, just being a part of a team and, trying to make things better for archery and more proficient. So that's really been an enjoyment.
So you're talking about ideas that you've got in your head and talking to other people. What do you have cooking with T-Bone Outdoors, and who are you working with, and what are you up to?
Well, got a few things. Had a big conversation with Hoyt. We got a few accessory things that we're adding to just make things more innovative. Broadheads I've had a lot to do with, like the design of. I'm not an engineer, but things that work, like with the Mega Meat G5 Outdoors, the Mega Meat and the Dead Meat Broadhead, which that stemmed off from like the T3 and the Tekken, which was years ago, but now they have the Dead Meat and the Mega Meat, and it's been absolutely fantastic and very successful. But with Last Chance Archery, we came out with the Broadhead tuner a few years ago. We also have a thing. This is good for every hunter. Actually, we're actually shooting a video on this here in the next week. It's called what is the name of it? It's a sling mate. So this works with, if you're a duck hunter, a turkey hunter, a rifle hunter, anything with a sling. It works with coolers, bags, or anything like that. But primarily, it really shines with a muzzleloader, a shotgun, or a rifle. But it just clips on to your existing sling. And you know how when everybody puts a sling on, they run their thumb underneath there so that their sling don't fall off. Mm-hmm. So you walk through the woods, you're one-handed. So if you want to use your binoculars, you jack your shoulder up and have to look through your binos. Or if you're climbing onto a four-wheeler or climbing up your stand, you don't want to drop your rifle, or if you got all these decoys and stuff going into the turkey woods or duck hunting. Whereas with this invention, it's less than $20. It clips on and it wraps around and it keeps your sling on onto your shoulder. So it works with any sling, any gun, and it keeps the gun on your shoulder. And then you just have one clip that's right in front of you that you undo the clip, and your gun's free to shoot. Like if you needed to pop a coyote on the way to the stand or something like that, you could access your gun real easy. So it doesn't you don't have to bolt it to your backpack, but for less than $20, and it's transferable to any gun. So it's not like you got to buy one for every gun or you have to buy a certain sling. This sling mate works for any guns. I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer for duck, turkey, and rifle hunters. So it's super safe. Climbing over fences. How many times have you climbed over a fence and your gun falls off and your barrel goes into the woods? You got to $2,000 or $3,000 setup and you want to protect it with this sling mate, allows it to stay safe and secure to your shoulder, and it's easy to access as well. And Last Chance Archery, they're the ones that has the sling mate. So we're just doing a video since we're right in the heart of duck and rifle season, so that everybody can see it for Christmas.
This may be a tough question to answer because it seems like it's a tough question for everybody we've asked it to. You've been able to get out and do a lot. Is there anything left to check off as far as boxes, where you want to hunt, what you want to hunt? Is there anything left kind of on your list that you're kind of building towards or excited to get to?
Well, yeah, I get asked that a lot, honestly. And like I told you before, when you get cancer and, you have to battle cancer, and plus I've lost my leg, I look back on what I've got, and I have by far outlived my career, outlived my expectations. I would have never thought, as a fat Douglasville boy, flat-footed, that I would ever get to kill a third of the stuff that I've been able to, hunt and harvest all across this country. But if you're putting a gun to my head, and there's one thing, like I tell folks all the time, if I never kill another cockroach, I've far outlived my what I thought that I would be able to do. So I'm blessed as far as that goes. But the one hunt that I never got to do that I would like to do, and but again, if I don't get to, I'm very satisfied, would be a Yukon moose hunt with archery equipment. I never got to do that. I would love to do like a float trip down the river and, spot and stalk and do a, from the river, a Yukon moose hunt. That would be awesome. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that. And the reason why is because not just shooting something with a bow and arrow, but because of, I don't know, I always like playing with my, arrows and the FOC and the mass weight of the arrow and the penetration of the broadheads. And, there's something special about, you got a bow and arrow, you're pulling back a string, you have eccentrics and limbs that, basically catapults the arrow towards the animal, and you got to be accurate. And then the weight that you have has to go through an animal, and there's nothing bigger than a Yukon moose to be able to do that on a Yukon moose. If you're really breaking it down, that would just be the ultimate to me. So that would be my gun to my head. Would love to do as a Yukon moose.
Man, T-Bone, it's been so fun talking with you and hearing you talk archery, the thing that I love, and just hearing about your travels. But we got one final question for you.
Sure.
And, that's me. What is different about Georgia hunting versus anywhere else?
Yeah, I get asked that a lot too. Georgia hunting is, well, first of all, Georgia is very diverse. We got mountains, we got the coastal, we got swamps in the Okefenokee. We're very blessed to have quite a few different critters to chase, between bear, hogs, deer, turkeys, and pretty abundant, in all those. But I can promise you this, after hunting across the country, if you take a good a hunter in Georgia, a good bow hunter that could, has killed one or two Pope and Youngs in Georgia, they will absolutely murder some critters in other states, because it is hard to kill a Pope and Young or a mature buck in Georgia, period. Like we had said early on, it's basically vampires. No matter, you really, without trail cameras, it's just about impossible. Just to see when the deer are daylighting, because you get so many, even with light pressure, you get so few daylight pictures of these critters. So it's tough, but it's very rewarding. And Georgia is a good state as far as being, having lots of diversity, and as far as fishing, and you can kind of scratch your itch on everything. As far as what you want to, without, unless we're talking about elk or mule deer or something like that. So it's very rewarding. If you can hone your hunting skills in Georgia, you'll be fine in just about every other state.
That's good.
And that speaks to my heart right there. I love it when, we had Jay Maxwell on. He said the exact same thing, basically. And
Yeah.
the guys at Feathered Tines said the same thing. Like it is, you can do it all, but none of it is particularly easy.
That's right.
There's a challenge to all of it, and that's the fun part about it. And you're getting to do a lot of hunting in the state of Georgia now. It seems like you're in the middle of a real good season, just as far as how much you're able to go. And man, I couldn't be happier for you in that regard, and find your story incredibly inspirational. And we just appreciate you, man. Thank you so much. Keep doing what you're doing.
Oh yeah, thank you guys for having me. Just 2 nights ago, I don't know if y'all seen or not, but we had a deer here on our place, and it's the oldest deer I've ever killed in my life. He's 9.5 years old, and that's not just I don't think there's nobody that can just look at a deer without knowing its history and gauge it at 9.5 years old, and I believe that firmly. You can get 1 to 4.5 and maybe 5.5, but after that it's just a guess unless you've got history with it. But this particular deer, we've got pictures of and sheds and everything like that. So he's 9.5 years old, and Monday evening was the first time that I've seen him live in over 4 years. Got pictures of him nearly every other day, but it's the first time that I'd seen him daylighted and live. So he's not much on headgear whatsoever, but he's got my respect. It was kind of sad to see a deer make it to 9.5 years old anywhere is a feat, but to do it here in Georgia, that was pretty amazing. So we called him Flock of Seagulls because of the shape of his rack. So we got to pay homage to Flock. He's gone now.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but no, thank you guys. I'm really, really proud of my home state. I mean, I was born in Ohio, but I call Georgia home, and you guys keep up the great work. I'm glad to see doing some podcasts and stuff, celebrating Georgia. And I tell all the other guys that work there at GON, whatever you guys need from us, Bone Collector, Realtree, myself, we're always here to help and glad to celebrate, like I said, all things Georgia.
We appreciate it.
All right, Braelin, T-Bone's salt of the earth. I don't know any other way to say it. What just an awesome human being, even when his camera falls down in the middle of the interview.
He's great. That was so fun. I'd heard a lot about him, seen his videos, obviously followed along on social media, but never actually gotten to talk and engage with him. And that was so entertaining. And I love the fact that his phone fell, he just added to it. But it was fun talking archery with him. Everybody knows, I think you should know by now that I'm a big bow fan. So hearing him talk about just different things was making me all crazy inside.
Yeah, I hate to harp on it too much, but I think it kind of speaks to who he is. That camera falls, he doesn't miss a beat. He's just calm. I would be over there frantically trying to get it up and apologize and everything. He's just good to go. I asked him right before we hooked up for the interview. I said, "Hey, I know you hadn't done much of this. I hope you're not very camera shy." And he got a kick out of that. He's like, "Yeah, man, I was up all night thinking about this thing." So, but I mean, the experiences and kind of, just a kid from Georgia, unassuming, apparently a natural as far as archery goes. Very, wins the first tournament he ever gets in. Unbelievable. Just such a cool story. But I think my favorite part about the whole interview was hearing him talk about, "Hey, I'm over here competing in the truck buck while battling cancer." Like that was, nobody really knew that battle that he was going through because that's just kind of the guy he was. He didn't want the attention that kind of came with that.
Yeah, that's such a miracle. And it really shows how the Lord works through just mysterious ways. And just, he'll get you through it. And it's to see T-Bone now after going through all that. And he's still out there living life, doing all that he does. It's a great story to be told.
And I believe as we speak right now, our friend Kimberly Lee might be actually hanging out with him up in Indianapolis. They're up there at the what's that expo?
The ATA show.
What's that?
The ATA show.
Okay. Yeah, I was afraid I'd put you on the spot there for a second.
No, I got it. Bows, remember archery.
There you go. Yeah, but I know he's up there. I know she's up there. And I hope we're able to do a lot of stuff with him in the future because he's wildly entertaining. And I know that, so I've talked to a few people about that interview since we did it. And everybody just asked, "Hey, how's T-Bone doing? How's he doing?" He's got so many fans out there. Mm-hmm. That's really cool. And also the mention of a 9.5-year-old deer. I didn't know that was even possible in this world.
Can't imagine 9.5 years. Whew.
Yeah, you've lived a full life if you do that as a deer. You've seen some stuff.
It's his time to go, and he went. And
he went. Flock of seagulls, I believe is what he called them.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Guys, we really appreciate you guys being involved in the Field Notes podcast. We want to thank Farm Bureau Insurance for being our presenting sponsor. And we want you to come back next week. We're going to have another awesome show. We're going to put a lot of thought, a lot of effort into it. And y'all go enjoy the outdoors while we put that thing together. Take it easy.
See y'all.